Hello, and welcome to the list of my personal least favourite hit songs of 1994. This was the year when the Channel Tunnel opened between England and France. America stopped to a halt to watch an SUV drive around LA. The whole of New Zealand was shocked to the core after this Becky twat shot up his entire family. And tragically, Gen Xers lost their voice of a generation. Now here in the UK, 1994 is considered kind of a landmark year in music on the level of 1967 or 1976. Mainly because this was the year that Britpop hit the mainstream with both the biggest bands of the scene releasing hit albums that are still considered classics to this very day. Also, this was the year where the biggest music radio station, BBC Radio 1, had a giant overhaul as a lot of the old dinosaur boomer DJs who were more interested in playing a new Rod Stewart single than anything current were toothed out as the station aimed towards a more younger audience that actually listened to things like Britpop and dance music. Which is quite the contrast to what was going on in the States, and upon looking up that year's year-end list, I was actually kind of shocked by how much of that list was dominated by super boring R&B ballads. And I know I'm going to upset some people by saying that, and I'm not going to judge you for liking those kinds of songs, but those kinds of ballads are really not my thing. Sorry. Really goes to show the cultural differences when you get a poxy Brit like me to judge what Americans liked back then. And now you know why I look at global hits and not just the Hot 100 like everyone else. Now, in terms of the worst list, thankfully there weren't many tiers to choose from considering how strong this year is. Some of these in any other year I could have easily ignored altogether, to be perfectly honest with you. Criteria, as always, is anything that debuted in Billboard's year-end list for 1994, the European Hot 100 year-end list for 1994, or anything that cracked the top 10 anywhere in the world that didn't make either list. And now, let's get on with the show. Okay, this is kind of the same deal as the E17 song I put on the previous year's worst list, in that it's a bunch of doofy white Brits trying their hand at American R&B and end up woofing it completely. I mean, at least E17 were marketed as a bunch of bad boys, so it made sense for them to go that route. But oh boy does it sound awkward coming from Take That of all bands. I mean, these are supposed to be the nice boys from Up North who sing with Lulu. This really isn't in their wheelhouse. Yeah, okay, that was the very beginning before they started having hits, so that doesn't really count. And the astonishing thing is that this song hit #1 over here. This song. I don't think anyone outside their most diehard stans would remember this song if you asked them. It would probably get you a pointless answer on a 90s UK #1s category on Pointless. I can only assume that this most likely hit #1 purely on name recognition alone. So in a way, you could say that this is the dark horse of the Take That lore. Now, like I said, it's not the worst song in the world, and in any other year I most likely would have ignored it, or at worst gave it a dishonourable mention. But in a strong year like 1994 where there wasn't much bad to choose from, yeah, I'm sorry, this is just gonna have to fill this slot. Let's make it all fun, all for love. And I welcome you all to episode 2 of our series covering shitty Bryan Adams 90s movie ballads. Now, admittedly, out of all the shitty Bryan Adams 90s movie ballads I'll be talking about in this series, this one is the closest to terrible of the lot for me, but it doesn't make it any good, just so we're clear. But yeah, the movie this particular song came from was the Three Musketeers movie. And in fitting with the theme of the movie, it's being performed as part of a trio with two other boomer icons that were well into their suck period by this point. You could call it the Triforce of 90s dad rock suckage. I've seen people jokingly refer to this song as a gruff-off, as two, arguably three of these singers seem to be in a competition for who can sing the gruffest vocals, and the end result has more gravel than the M1. Oh, and of course they had to ham-fistedly fit in the all for one and one for all catchphrase in the chorus, because that's what most people know about the Three Musketeers story, and so the movie producers dictated that it be in the song somewhere for brand recognition. Funnily enough, I don't remember this movie being a big deal at all, and looking at its box office, it only barely broke even. So I think it's fair to say that the song that was supposed to promote it was far more successful, considering that it was a top 10 hit pretty much everywhere, and I can only attribute said success to the names attached to the thing, because it certainly wasn't due to the quality of the music, I'll tell you that much.
Don't take the girl.
So, this part is probably going to be shocking to some of you, as both the worst of 94 videos I've seen have this at number 1. But as soupy and cringe as this song is, at least to me there are some funny bad moments in it. Like his country drawl is laid out so thick in this song it's almost comical. Especially when he's singing about how Johnny's daddy was taking him fishing. It's like if JT from Survivor had a singing career. And also the Mr. Give It a Whirl line is just comedy gold to me. Like, yeah, that's totally the kind of thing to tell someone who's trying to mug you. But yeah, for those of you who don't know what this song is about, it's basically one big cornball story about a boy's evolving relationship with a girl as they both grow up and get married and have a kid and all that stuff. Now obviously the part that really gets people's knickers in the right twist is the final verse when his wife is about to die during childbirth. The video does imply that she survives in the end, but yeah, I still agree that I find it kinda distasteful that the titular girl in the song is only used as a mere plot device to advance the guy's story, and then apparently gets fridged in the end. I mean, she doesn't even get a name, she's only ever referred to as the girl. It's basically like the song equivalent of that final season of How I Met Your Mother. I wonder if the writers for that show got some inspiration from this song. Now, while this song is only number 8 on my list, I do completely agree with all the criticisms that both Muse and Diane made. I just don't hate this as much as they did. So, I've already complained about kids singing songs that are not age appropriate in previous worst lists, and yeah, this one is no exception for me. This is meant to be this smooth and romantic R&B ballad, but these kids look like they barely hit puberty, and it makes the whole thing just seem deeply uncomfortable to me. Some of you old farts like me might recognise the main singer as the annoying neighbour from Sister Sister, and if this song is anything to go by, he probably should have stuck to his day job of acting rather than attempting to be a PG version of R. Kelly. You see what I mean now? My poor ears were never the same after that. Okay, I know I shouldn't be picking on the singing ability of a child, and that's gonna make me look like a giant arsehole, but I can't deny how bad that clip sounded. I mean, it's like 3 2010 era Justin Biebers in one. These kids are clearly not ready for the prime time. Now, I want to make clear that the song wouldn't have been approved much if they got actual grown-ups to sing it instead. I mean, it's far too mushy and boring for my taste, but the fact that they got a bunch of 12-year-olds to sing this just makes the whole thing just come across wrong to me. And that's why I put it on the list. But hey, at least it didn't give me a serious case of the ick like Aisha, so I guess that's progress, whatever that's supposed to mean.
Love is all around me, and so there'll be.
You guys remember when I talked about that Bryan Adams song being #1 in the UK charts for 16 weeks? Well, before Drake's Snooze Fest came along, this was the one song that almost matched it, with a way too long 15 weeks at #1. The lyrics contain the lines, "There's no beginning, there'll be no end," and oh boy, by the 10th week of that run, it felt like it was never ending. Never have truer words been spoken. Obviously, the main reason why this song was so popular was because this was the main song from the 4 Weddings and a Funeral soundtrack, which was a movie so big at the time that it was a hit even in the States. And in the process, reinforced the impression you Yanks have of us that everyone on this cursed island are bumbling posh people with fancy accents and a stiff upper lip. I hope by now that after making several of these videos that I've helped dispel that myth for you guys. And in case you didn't know, this song also happens to be a cover. This was originally a Trog song from the 1960s that, in my opinion, wasn't all that good, but it was kind of endearing in its simplicity. But this version just turns up the bombast up to 11 with all the string sections and just makes the whole thing sound much more pompous and overblown than it ever needed to be. If you're wondering why All for Love was lower on this list than you were expecting, this song is why, because this is a far worse movie soundtrack ballad in my opinion. Eventually, even the band got sick of this song and deleted it after its final week at #1, which is why it didn't end up breaking Bryan Adams' record in the end. Probably the only favour they ever did for us. But they still put out this song, so you're not getting a pass from me.
This is for my homie. This is for.
Now, I've mentioned before that the mid-90s in Billboard saw a lot of gangster rap and a lot of soft R&B ballads. But wait! What if we had a song that was somehow both? Doesn't sound like the most compatible combination in the world, but it's doable, right? It's not uncommon for rappers and R&B singers to cross-pollinate after all. Well, this song is an unfortunate demonstration on how that genre blend can go completely sideways. Look, I apologize for what I'm about to say because I don't want to dictate how people are allowed to mourn, but when your heartfelt ballad to Fallen Friends has the line, "This one's for my homies," I just find it hard to keep a straight face and take this remotely seriously. And yeah, as I just explained, this song is basically a dedication to all those fallen gangsters who were mindlessly killed in their prime, and the term gangsterlean is a reference to lying in a coffin. And for me, the tone is just all over the place. Like, it wants to be heartfelt, but at the same time, this is a gangster song, so it needs to go hard as well, and it just ends up hitting a really weird note. Especially with the weird dancing in the video, it just feels very performative in the goofiest of ways to me. I wonder if Master P got inspiration for this for his own worldly misguided attempt at a tribute song. You know, the song that made Rap Critic almost die laughing.
All my homies passed away.
thankfully, 2 years later, we get a certain song that was also a mournful tribute to fallen homies that is actually good, and thus removing any usefulness this crap had and wiping it from memory. Well, except for nerds like me who make worst hits lists, so I guess it does have some use after all. So, you guys remember what I said in the last worst list, right? Slight spoiler alert for future worst lists, but in terms of bad Bon Jovi ballads, it's only gonna get worse from here. Yeah, well, this is what I was referring to. This is, honest to God, one of the worst, most drawn-out choruses I've ever heard in my life. It's like he's trying his best to stretch out as few syllables for as long as possible, and the end result is just agonizing. And in case you're wondering why this sounds like a shitty Bryan Adams 90s movie ballad, it's because this song was originally meant to be part of a soundtrack. The film in question was a movie called Romeo is Bleeding, which is why that forms part of the opening line, in case you were wondering. But apparently Jon Bon Jovi hated the movie so much upon seeing it that he pulled the song from the soundtrack at the last minute. Kind of a dick move, but from what I've heard about the movie, it's not like he was wrong or anything. But they still thought this pile of trash was single-worthy, so they're not getting a pass here. Also, technically this would make this the worst movie ballad in a year that was already ripe for shitty movie ballads, so that's quite the achievement. I really don't know why 90s movie ballads needed to be so cheesy and overwrought like this. I mean, in the 80s our movie songs were catchy and fun. What the hell happened? I kind of want to blame that song that shall not be named, but I also think the huge success of the Bodyguard soundtrack is also partly to blame. Thankfully, the Men in Black theme song will come along to fix things. Oh god, look, I really shouldn't have to explain myself at this point, right? The difference with this song is that, unlike a lot of the overly graphic and steamy songs of this ilk that I put on previous worst lists up to this point, is that this song happens to be the complete opposite in that it's overly mushy and sentimental with such a squeaky clean aesthetic that it makes me want to throw up. And you know how sometimes you will randomly get a song that you really hate stuck in your head despite yourself, and it makes you want to beg for a lobotomy just to make it go away? Well, this is one of those songs for me, and I can't think of why. I'm honestly getting to the point where it's really hard to add anything new when it comes to these kinds of songs, so yeah, I'm sorry for copping out like this, but I'm just gonna keep this brief and swiftly move on to the next one. We have now officially reached the problematic section of this list, and oh boy, I am so not looking forward to this because that means I'm gonna have to get up on my soapbox again. And thus I'm going to get pretty angry. Now, why is this song problematic to me? That's because it's basically the grand romantic story of a guy who walked out on his significant other, then out of the blue returns many years later trying to get back in contact with her. He gets a hold of her father, who tells him to get stuffed, and at the end of the song he finds out that she had given birth to his kid while he was AWOL. And it makes me so angry that this is made out to be this big romantic thing, and I'm like, fuck you! Why on earth in her right mind would she ever even consider taking him back after running off without a single peep and leaving her with his kid to take care of all by herself? It's also not helped by the fact that it's being sung by Mark Owen, who, in my opinion, out of the three main singers of Take That, is by far the weakest vocally. Not that it would have been much better if Gary or Robbie was singing it. Also, apparently Gary Barlow wrote this song when he was a teenager, and oh boy, you can tell. This is honestly like Your Body is a Wonderland or Little Things levels of cringy teenage poetry. Oh, and on the subject of cringe, check out this performance on Top of the Pops where the BBC tried to incorporate 3D technology for this one episode, for which the early 90s definition of 3D basically meant having a bunch of gaudy CGI shit flying around during your soppy ballad. This song was actually very close to getting the coveted Christmas #1 in 1993. The reason why I put it on the 94 list instead is because most of its international success fell in the 94 calendar year. But in the end, it was usurped by Mr. Blobby. I never thought I'd be saying this, but thank God! Mr. Blobby was truly the hero we needed but didn't deserve. Oof. Whew, I'm almost glad the dishonorable mentions are next, so I can take a bit of a breather from being all ranty, because I can feel my throat getting tighter from all the stress that I'm putting it under. I mean, not that the #1 spot is going to be good, obviously, but at least the dishonorable mentions are a more blah kind of bad, so let's just whiz right through them, shall we? Hey, you guys remember Don't Go Breaking My Heart from the 70s? That was a real classic, right? Well, this is the belated sequel that no one asked for. A lame 90s easy listening cover of a Cole Porter song. Yay.
And I swear, by the moon and the
Oh, boy. He lied because his feelings are stronger than love, yada yada yada. Look, don't pull this bait and switch BS with me, okay? Now, before anyone asks me, this has absolutely nothing to do with Celine. I just do not like this song in general, and this cover isn't much better in my opinion. But I'll save my bile for when I eventually cover the original in my Wisd of 85 list. Yeah, this whole thing is just one big giant ball of cringe. This is just treading way too close to bedrock territory for my liking. Way to ruin one of your most iconic songs, making a cod reggae version of it with this ridiculous Jamaican accent. Oof.
I miss you. Oh, I miss you.
Yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again here. Some pop singers should just stick to the bops, really. And that's it for the dishonorable mentions. I don't know if you noticed, but I had slightly less dishonorable mentions than I usually do, so goes to show how good of a year this was, alright? But anyway, let's have a quick recap of our top 10 before finding out what my #1 pick is.
outlaw, half Cherokee and Choctaw, my baby.
Yeah, this pick will probably surprise some of you because, as I mentioned earlier, all the worst of 94 lists that I've seen had Don't Take the Girl ranked higher than this, but personally I think Indian Outlaw is 100 times worse because, oh dear God, is this really problematic these days. Like, you legit could not make a song like this these days. And I don't mean it in the same way that conservative balls say, oh, you couldn't make Blazing Saddles these days. Like, releasing a song like this in 2023 will get you cancelled faster than a show on Netflix. In case you couldn't already tell by the title, this song is basically sung from the point of view of a Native American guy. And even as a dumb European who knows absolutely nothing about Native Americans, even I can tell that all the Tom Tom and Cherokee references are about as ham-fisted as a particularly racist Golden Age era Hollywood production. It's like making a song about how African Americans are really fond of fried chicken. It's just ridiculous! And before you ask, yes, this singer is very much a basic white dude with zero Native American ancestry, so he can't even pull a Johnny Depp with this musical red face. And how do we know this? Because he actually participated in a Who Do You Think You Are style show about his family tree. What on earth was everyone involved thinking with this? Now I know the easy response is to go, oh dear, they're a bunch of rednecks in the 90s, what do you expect? It's still no excuse in my opinion. I'm pretty sure that even back in 1994 this had to have hurt quite a few people. And that's why I have no issue putting this at number 1 on my list of the worst hit songs of 1994. Weirdly enough, despite Nashville having a major boom in the early 90s, this and the aforementioned Don't Take the Girl were the very rare occasions of a country song showing up on the year-end chart around this time. Because if you recall, Billboard's eligibility rules were beginning to bite them in the arse by this point, and country music has historically relied on airplay to measure success, so you can draw your own conclusions there. I'm pretty sure a lot of country fans had to be irked that this was the country representative at the time when people like Garth Brooks were selling megabucks at the time. Oh well. So that's it. That's the worst hit songs of 1994 all done. So obviously what's going to come next is the best hit songs of 1994, and I've already got a good feeling that that video is going to be a good one, so stay tuned for that one. But until then, I'll see you around.